Hello and welcome to a new SCAL 500 news video here on the channel. At the time of recording 2 days ago, Herpa Wings had a live stream on Instagram. Yes, finally they did have a live stream once again. And in that live stream they had quite a few interesting information, which I'm trying to summarize here in this video, which means you will listen to some of the statements they came up with. I might have one or two comments on that. And of course we will also go through all the models they mentioned and were asked about. However, I, for time reasons, won't be able to mention all the models that were talked about. For that, there is a comprehensive list in the description below. So if you don't hear anything about a model you very much would like to see in the future, just check out the list. Maybe it is on there. As always, the live stream was bilingual. However, not all questions were always answered both in German and English, sometimes only in German. Sometimes the answers were more comprehensive in one language than the other. But don't worry, as I speak both languages fluently, I should be able to give you more or less the gist of what they came up with. But the first topic that we want to highlight here in this video is the issue of pricing. Herpa was asked about that and they luckily also answered.
The question was, and I think that's probably a very important question for everybody, which we fully understand, is the price situation. There are a lot of different factors going into the price increase. It starts, with production cost increases, energy cost increases, logistics issues. I also talked a little bit about licensing. Licensing is a big factor and getting a even bigger factor, sadly, unfortunately. Just for example, I mentioned that also just now, of course cannot say which licensor it is, but we're just now trying to fend off a doubling of a license fee of one of our license partners alone. Having to spend the time in discussing about all these issues and not taking care of the models themselves is very, very frustrating. And to add on top of that, seeing that there are companies out there in our model business who don't even care about licensing or don't have to pay any of these fees. So yeah, basically it's a long story. We could talk here, I guess, I don't know, for at least half hour, 45 minutes, just about the logistics problems that we have, because most probably know that the ships from China to Europe are not going through the Suez Canal, not through the Red Sea anymore. They're going around the southern tip of South Africa all the way, which causes, of course, longer shipping times. The containers are not there where they're supposed to be. The containers, of course, if they're longer on sea, they cannot be back in time to get refilled over in China. It's a big mess, and it's lasting. And even if it arrives at the harbor, then you still have a lot of customs issues, a lot of delays. I think we even had a strike last week in the harbor, and all of these things just add up onto all these costs simply. And sooner or later, basically later, at a very delayed time, we have to react, and we just simply have to pass some of these costs on.
All right, quite a bit here to unpack. I mean, firstly, yes, he's not wrong. I mean, most of the things he spoke about are happening and they are a factor. What I am definitely missing with Herpa Wings is the fact that when some of these factors go away, that we then see a price decrease. Let me, for example, talk about the shipping costs. It is true that shipping costs at the moment are quite high. However, they are only at not even 50% of the maximum price we saw during the Corona pandemic. And after the Corona pandemic, when we came out of that, the shipping costs actually decreased to a level below what we saw before the Corona pandemic. However, we haven't seen that impact the prices of Herpa models. They haven't become cheaper, and now when the shipping costs are increasing, then becoming more expensive again. No, they have just risen. And then you can't really use that argument. If you're only taking all the negative effects and use those as arguments why you need to increase your prices, but leave away conveniently all the beneficial factors, well, it's not a good look. But if you want to know more about how Herpa's prices come together, I have actually made a quite comprehensive video about that last year, and despite it being almost a year old now, it is absolutely still very much up to date. So I highly recommend you to check that out if you want to know more about Herpa's prices, how they come together, and why they might be fair enough and why they might not be fair enough. I will of course leave a link to it in the video description below, and it might also be popping up here in the top right corner of your screen. Then there was a question regarding GSE. I mean, this is a topic that continues with every live stream Herpa does. They are asked about it, they say, oh well, let us know what you want to have and we will see what we can do, and then nothing happens. And it feels not much different this time. They have again said, well, yes, let us know what you want to have, but at least this time they became a little bit more concrete.
We actually do have a set now that's coming in November, December. It's something that hasn't been available for, well, I mean, at least 10 years. Will be the same set configuration of vehicles, but it will be completely new colors. We just basically the old set something, but we didn't want to do it the same old colors, but just, you know, have a little bit of a colorful variety in there. Also here in this case, we do want to now and then, always now and then in between, add some new accessories. So just please let us know perhaps in what old sets you are actually missing. Construction set, I think, is one of those. Even though if I can't say that now. Before we jump to the next question, the construction vehicle crane accessory set actually became popular only after it was sold out. I think we had it on stock for 3 years, and then afterwards, I think in the last couple of years, I think if you try to buy it on eBay, it gets very, very expensive. But we'll still look into these things if that is still one of those sets that is actually, you know, sought after.
If we are following the typical Herpa trend here, yes, there will be a new color, but they will also have removed pretty much all printed details if there were any to begin with. That would be a typical move from them, and of course it will not be released at the price of from 10 years ago, but at a new, much more expensive price. But okay, that's a different topic. And I think it's quite telling and quite funny to hear Herpa talk about this construction set, saying that it only became popular after it had went out of stock. And their conclusion is not to then say, oh, look, this is a set that has become very popular, let's re-release it. No, their conclusion is, it didn't sell in the beginning, then it became very popular, let's just never do it again. I don't really understand the logic behind that. If you know that it is very popular, if you know there's a demand, why wouldn't you do it? It's easy money, take it. Another topic that was touched upon in the live stream was the dreaded box design, and finally they actually started commenting a little bit more about it, but let's listen to what they had to say before I give you my opinion.
Question was about why do we still keep the same box design, which apparently is not loved by all. The thing is, we have a lot of different customers. Basically, of course we have the collector, we have the retailer, we have hopefully a lot of new customers coming in. So we have to find a box that works for everybody. The box itself, I think we mentioned that a couple of times also before. In past times we had a big picture on it, and that was actually came from the idea before there was an internet, and well, as I said, those times did exist. And where you had a comparison where you knew exactly, okay, cool, I'm buying a Condor A330 and this is what it looks like in real life. Nowadays you can really find it on the internet. You just look it up in a search engine or just type in the registration and you can find that. In addition, it was really, really difficult. It was getting more and more difficult with the airlines to find a picture that we were allowed to use. And we thankfully have a big assortment of a big supporting group, let's say it that way, around of photographers who offer pictures to us, photos to us. So very supportive on that end. But then often there's something in the background that the airlines don't like. They see maybe the tail of a competitor or something, or there are two people walking around in the picture, or the sky is not blue enough, or whatever. So basically we try to solve that issue, and at the same time try to make it possible that people don't rip open the boxes all the time in stores. I mean, you're a core collector group, you know how to open boxes. But if you go to a normal retail store, even here sometimes in the museum shop that we have here, people just rip it open, want to look it's normal, you want to see what's inside, and then the box is damaged, nobody wants to buy it anymore. And with the window in the front and the back, you can really see automatically, is everything there where it's supposed to be? Are there any loose tires or whatever? So I hope that it's not a compromise that would be too negative, but that's just a workable solution to present the model that's inside.
All right, a lot to unpack here. I mean, one thing, yes, fair enough. You have different customers, different needs from these customers regarding the model. That's totally fair. I don't understand why Herpa is so stuck in the past, always brings up this argument about, oh, you know, I mean, in the past where there was no internet, you needed images of the real aircraft so you could compare it with the model. Well, I mean, Herpa would always lose this comparison because Herpa models have never been very detailed. So that's already nonsense. But I mean, it's not like we are going around asking you, oh, please bring back the pictures of real aircraft on the boxes. If that's too complicated, if for whatever reason that isn't viable for you anymore, fine. But just look at any other die-cast manufacturer. You're the only ones that do this double window type box. There's no other manufacturer doing this. And there's a reason, because it looks absolutely hideous. You always bring up the argument that you have new customers that don't know what they're buying if they can't see the model. I mean, that doesn't seem to be a problem with all other die-cast manufacturers, so that argument is already void. Then you're saying, oh, you know, people are ripping up the boxes so they can see the model inside. I mean, sure, this will happen at times, but I don't think this is a huge issue because most of the people that buy these models, they do take care of the boxes. And do not ever let yourself take away the right to open the box to check the model. It is absolutely within your right to check the product before you buy it. If you go to a shop which does not allow you to do so, do not buy from them. I'm sorry. And I mean, just think about the argument. Oh, we have opened up the box so you can see the model inside to see if it is damaged before you buy it. Doesn't that say something about your quality of your product if you need to check the model for damages before you buy it? You don't even have the confidence in your own product anymore that you think you can sell it without having to take it completely out of the box. And by the way, the feature of having the ability to take a look at the model from outside the box without having to remove it from the box doesn't even work. You always bring this up. You always say, oh yeah, you know, you can look into the box, you can see if everything is there. Well, but it doesn't show me if a model is damaged. Yes, in extreme cases where everything is just loose because you once again forgot to use any form of glue, then I can see it. But I can't see if a wing is loose. That can only be seen if I take it out of the blister. And most of the times, I grant you, I can fix the wing myself by just adding a little bit of glue. But on the other hand, if the wing, by becoming detached, has damaged the paint, I cannot fix that. And I cannot see that from outside the box. I have to open the box. So your whole argument is void. It does not work. The one function you say is the reason why you want to have it does not work. The target audience of not knowing what a plane is and still wanting to buy a model of it, I really struggle to recognize. But okay, you have the sales numbers, so I assume they exist. But again, it is just funny that no one from your competition, not a single other company, has this box design. It's only you, and there's a reason for it. It's cost cutting. It is corner cutting. It is laziness, because it's easier for you just to do it like this. You don't have to put any effort into the box. And it is quite telling that you can do other box designs, but you only do it when the airlines insist to get a decent box design. And then suddenly it is not a problem that you can't see the aircraft model inside and that you would have to remove the model from the box to check if it is damaged. Now, another topic that I have talked about quite often and that I know is also being discussed by many of you guys is the whole thing, why not produce models in Eastern Europe instead of China when you have so many issues with the production there, quality issues, transportation issues, cost issues, whatever. I have talked about this many times before, and luckily they did also go into this a little bit, so let's hear what they had to say.
If there's so many logistics problems that continue to give problems to us, why don't we produce in Europe maybe, or even Germany? And the thing is, it's just too expensive. We have actually, it's a constant thing that's on our mind, how to become independent. And we actually have 2 sets of molds for aircraft, for die-cast aircraft models here in Dietenhofen. where we do trials, we experiment a little bit just to see how we can improve, how we can make things more efficient, and it just does not work out enough that we can actually offer something in a feasible and in an economical way. We'll keep on trying, but it's not something that will happen in a short or midterm.
The question was specifically about moving production to Eastern Europe. He answered it as moving it to Europe or Germany. And obviously that's a whole different scenario. And I can understand that they say this is not feasible, but I still would argue that there are good arguments as to why you could move your production to Eastern Europe and be better off. But I mean, he didn't completely rule it out. I mean, he did say that they're experimenting. He did say that they are thinking about things like that. So I think that is positive, but it would have been nice to just get a straight answer about Eastern Europe, because that's the whole point. Now, before we go any further, I just want to say that I think I do want to praise Herpa a little bit here. I don't just want to criticize them. I want to praise them because, one, they did a live stream again, that's very important, and two, they did actually take quite a few of these more difficult questions. I don't agree with many of the answers, but the fact that they are taking them in a public space and talking about it is commendable. So credit where credit's due. Now, they had a question here which I found really interesting. And honestly speaking, the answer made me quite baffled, even a little bit furious. The question was if they were to be a little bit self-critical, if there were any failed models, and if they could or should have done differently with these models. I didn't see the question in the chat, so I don't know how well it was written, but it was definitely quite poorly explained to him. So let's keep that in mind when he answers, that the question he got wasn't super clear, but I think you can still figure out what the topic is in generally about. So yeah, but let's hear what he had to say.
If you had to be self-critical, what do you think are the models that you know have failed? I mean, in terms of color errors, mold, etc. It would be good if we knew firsthand that they know those.
Okay, interesting question. Trying to buy some time here to think a little bit. Which models have failed? Wow, I mean, there's we're not saints, and we're not otherworldly people. We're just regular people, so things do happen. Now and then had I don't know, wrong engine, maybe, these kind of things. If a mold has completely failed or not, I mean, if we developed something where we had more hopes in, there are a couple of those. Are there ones that we also did not expect that success also? That were a complete failure? I wouldn't say so. There were things where we thought the hype would be higher, and in the end, demand was okay. It's really hard. I would have to flip through a few things to see really from the top of my head. I wouldn't say that a model would be we wouldn't have a complete failure where we know there's something lying around that nobody really likes, and we're sending things back. Maybe I'll come back to that later. To be honest, I'll give it a thought. Yeah,
I mean, what to say? I mean, again, okay, we have to give him the benefit of the doubt. The question wasn't super clear. So, yeah, but I mean, it's clearly not about if a model sells well or not. It's a question about if you had complete model fails that you released in a state where you shouldn't have released them. And I'm baffled that the product manager struggles so much here. I mean, I understand that you don't want to advertise all the failings of Herpa Wings. And by the way, the point is fair enough that he brings that saying, I mean, we are just humans, mistakes happen. Yes, mistakes happen. Maybe not as many as Herpa does, but mistakes happen. But not to be able to mention a single model that has failed. What about the infamous Cargolux 747 retro livery? What about the Qatar One World livery A350-1000, where the entire side print was off angle? What about the German Air Force A350 with the piss yellow wings? What about the Eurowings Hertz special livery where the color transition was a complete mess? I mean, what about was it a Galaxy, a US Air Force model where you had the wrong engines and then suddenly throughout the batch had changed to the correct engines, but still sold the ones with the wrong engines? I could go on and on and on about these kind of models. What about the LOT aircraft models, the two Embraer that you first announced, then they were delayed for 2 or 3 years without any information whatsoever. Then you cancelled the models, including all the pre-orders. Then you re-announced them immediately, but of course at a much higher price. Then they got delayed one more time, and then when you released them with the wrong blue tone. I mean, I could go on and on and on with this, and to have the product manager sit there and be completely baffled by this question about if any models have ever failed for Herpa. And I mean, I would have to think about that. I mean, it didn't take me many seconds to come up with a handful of models which were complete disasters. And I mean, if I just spend a few more minutes, I can come up with many, many more. So he should know. I hope he does. But the way he answered it, it's not a good look. What is also perhaps not a good look is Herpa's quality. But they did actually answer some questions about quality, and again, that is commendable. So let's listen what they had to say about that.
Sicherlich haben wir eine gute Qualität, ob wir uns damit unbedingt brüsten, und weiß ich jetzt nicht. Wir hoffen, dass wir eine gute Qualität bringen. Wie vorhin auch gesagt, wir sind alles Menschen, Sachen passieren. Ja? Wir nehmen selbstverständlich ernst, dass die Modelle euch gefallen müssen. Wenn die Modelle euch nicht gefallen, werden sie nicht gekauft, und dann sieht es ein bisschen blöd aus mit unseren Arbeitsplätzen.
So he only answered this question in German. I had asked him, Herpa doesn't hold back in advertising their quality. I mean, it's written everywhere on the website. They kind of denied that a little bit. They said, I mean, I don't know if we are that forward about that, but they are. I mean, it's marketing. So in that sense, it's fair enough. I found the answer to be a bit frustrating again, because instead of really going into the issue of, well, having quality issues of models that fall apart by just looking at them, he started talking about, well, I mean, we hope that people like our models, as in that they're making the aircraft types and airlines that people want to buy. And if they don't manage to do that, well, obviously it will impact sales, and then it's not so good for their jobs. But that's not the point. It's not the point if you're making the correct airlines here. It's a question of, if you make a model, does it come in one piece? But at least there was another question about the quality, which they also answered. So let's hear what they said here.
Ja, würde zumindest, aber gut, man würde es erkennen, wenn irgendwas rumfliegt in der Verpackung. Verkleben ist so eine Sache. Da müssen wir einfach Wege finden. Es ist ein leidiges Thema. Wir reden hier von Handarbeiten, einer Handmontage. Nehmen wir zu viel Kleber, drückt es raus. Nehmen wir zu wenig Kleber, und das Modell wird 5-mal durch die Welt geschickt mit Kurieren und Subunternehmen, die es eilig haben. Passieren solche Sachen leider.
All right, so he's again only answering in German, but let me translate here. So the leading question into this was one of the viewers of the live stream pointed out, well, I mean, the box doesn't help me when, for example, the wing is loose. And well, here he acknowledged finally that it does happen more often that the wings of Herpa models become loose. He puts it down to, I mean, it's not ideal that a model is being shipped 5 times around the world with loads of different shipping companies taking more or less care of the box or the models. And I mean, one, you could reduce the shipping if you just don't produce in China. And what he also kind of talked about, I mean, here with that they're trying to figure out the right amount of glue. If they put too much glue in it, you can see it on the model. If you put too little, it falls off. But I mean, I'm very, very sorry here. It's not like Herpa hasn't produced scale 500 models for what, about 30 years now? So I would assume, and I'm sorry if I'm very naive here, I would assume that if a company has made scale 500 plane models for what, about 30 years, that you pretty much have nailed down by now how much glue you need to apply so the wings don't fall off. If you by 30 years haven't figured that out, get out of the business. I'm very sorry, but that makes no sense. And it's not acceptable. I mean, I have never ever come across a model where they had applied too much glue to a wing. That's just not a thing. I'm very sorry. I have very many times come across a model where the wing just falls off because you have applied zero glue, and that's not acceptable. And then he comes with the point, I mean, if it happens that a wing falls off, you can just apply a bit of glue. True. If a wing comes off and it has damaged the model, please go to your retailer and return the model and you will get a substitute. Now, two things here. One, if it's a model that has sold out, there is no replacement. Too bad. Two, not all of us live in the 20th century of Germany where there are shops everywhere. Many of us live in places where there are no retailers selling die-cast models, so we can only order online, which reduces the chances of us returning a damaged model quite significantly. So it is imperative that your models arrive undamaged. And you could contribute to that by simply applying those 2 drops of glue you mentioned in the first place. Now I know I am being a bit pedantic here today and I'm attacking them quite a bit, and I can only do so because they actually took the time to talk to us collectors and, well, answer some of these questions. So I just want to point out one more time that I'm grateful for them doing it, and I'm also grateful that they took some of the harder questions. And I hope this can be a continuing dialogue between Herpa and the community so we can fix these issues that we all know about, and I'm sure they do as well, even though in some of these answers it seemed like they were hardly acknowledging it. But okay. There were, of course, also some questions regarding models, which I would like to go into. And I have a list just right here, so just apologies that I don't look into the camera while talking about that, but I can't memorize them all. So, of course, there were questions regarding Wizzair models. And I mean, already last year when they released the A320 of Wizzair, they said there would be more to come. They didn't manage anything last year. They certainly don't look like they're managing anything this year, but there is more to come. I mean, the likely models are, of course, an A320neo, an A321, and an A321neo, as those are the types the airline has. And they have kind of alluded to trying to complete the fleet at some point. Yeah, so there should be more coming here. Then the long-awaited Binter E295-E2. They have, of course, released the ATR, and everybody is just waiting for the E2. And that model is apparently in planning in Scale 500, so that should be coming at some point as well. But I wouldn't expect it for this year for sure, more likely next year. Then there was a question regarding Austrian Airlines, Swiss, and the Helvetica E2. And here there was a resounding yes, yes, and yes from the product manager. And with Austrian Airlines, possibly already a new model this year. If I had to guess, they would probably go for the 787. That would be a likely Herpa move. I personally would, of course, very much hope for the A320neo if they can't just make a normal A320. But let's see if they really manage to get an Austrian Airlines out this year. Would be quite cool in any case. Then there was a bunch of questions regarding Lufthansa models, because there are, of course, still, I don't know how, but they are still missing quite a few standard livery Lufthansa models. Herpa continues to release these special liveries and sticker liveries. Of course, also on the request of the airline. It's not just because Herpa wants to do them. I mean, they do also want to do them, but it is, yeah, both Herpa and the airline wanting to do them. But they know there are some models missing, so we are talking A320 in the standard livery, A320neo, A319, A321neo as a re-release, and all that is coming eventually. There were no specific dates about that, but most likely we will get all these models. The question is just when and how many special liveries are pushed in between that time. Then there was, of course, quite a few questions regarding Condor models. I mean, Herpa has already in the past said they will go through the entire fleet. We are still desperately waiting for the 757. There were no news about that. And I mean, the longer they wait, the more useless these 757 models become. But they were quite heavily criticized about the choice of the Nuremberg Toy Fair special model, which was an A330-900neo of Condor in this beige livery. Obviously, that was the wrong move. Collectors did not like it because it was a model that many people would like to have, and Herpa on purpose limited the chances for collectors to get this model. It just made it ridiculously more expensive because scalpers obviously went to the toy fair and bought all the models and then sold them for ridiculous prices. They very clearly do not understand that point at all. Their stance on this is, I mean, we want to have a special model to reward those people visiting us at the toy fair. They even asked people, what else should we have done? I mean, literally anything else, other than the probably one of the most sought after models this year. They were criticized about that. They clearly did not understand the point, but there was a question regarding the blue A321neo, and we can confirm that this model is coming already November, December this year, and of course all the other A321neos, and when new aircraft are entering the Condor fleet, they will also try to realize them as models. So a bunch of Condor models coming in the next few years for sure. Then we of course had, as mentioned, we already heard that the new GSE set, or the re-release of the GSE set, which is supposed to come November, December. Could be a good Christmas present. Then there was questions regarding LATAM, Azul and other South American airlines, and for LATAM there is more to come next year, and here they also specifically talked about a narrow body, something that has been requested for a very long time. Azul sounded a little bit more vague. It is, I think, possible, but they weren't very concrete about that. But they mentioned themselves Avianca as a possibility, and maybe some other airlines from Latin America. So let's see what comes there, but there should be more coming from South America, and also here some narrow bodies, which is quite cool. Then the Edelweiss A350 was asked about, and that is of course coming. It is a Lufthansa Group airline, so that will of course be made. Then there was questions regarding Qatar 787-9, 777-300ER standard liveries, of course, and then the A350-900 and 1000 as a re-release. And the answer here was for the 787-9, yes. For the 777-300ER, yes. And then for the A350 re-releases, that was a solid maybe. But this year for sure not. Next year there should, however, be at least 2 Qatar Airways models coming. That's what the product manager said. And then there was a question regarding the Gulf Air A321neo, which of course is a model that is still missing in the Gulf Air fleet that Herpa has made so far. But apparently Gulf Air models haven't sold that well. I mean, it's not really something I've noticed, to be honest, that they haven't sold that well, but that's what Herpa says, and they have, of course, the numbers. But regardless, they are committed to complete the Gulf Air fleet, so an A321neo of Gulf Air is quite likely. I would guess maybe next year. And then finally, there was also a question regarding the Air India A350. They, of course, have a new standard livery. And here the answer was that they are hoping for the permission to make several Air India models. So it sounds like they're working on something here. Again, maybe second half of next year, I would say, or a little bit later. Let's see how long it takes for them to get the deal done here. Now, there were a few other models talked about throughout the live stream. As I said, there is a comprehensive list of all the models mentioned in the live stream down below, so check that out. And that's all I had to say for this live stream. Again, I would like to thank Herpa Wings. I know I've done it a few times now, but I also have been quite harsh on them in this video. So I want to thank them for making the live stream. I want to thank them for taking the hard questions, but they do need to work on their answers. Okay, but that's all I had to say. If you like this type of content, don't forget to leave a like. If you are new around here, why not hit subscribe? Thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.